Hey everybody, Father Mike here. Today is Tuesday of the third week of Easter, and in our first reading we're continuing to read through the book of the Acts of the Apostles, and today we hear the famous story of the stoning of Saint Stephen, and we're told that a crowd is kind of rushing in on him to stone him. And it's important to know that in the Bible, crowds are always bad news. You can just as easily read, mindless or whatever, whenever you hear the word crowd. And we're told that Stephen, he doesn't really fixate or look at the crowd, but his eyes are raised to heaven. And he kind of gives his spirit over in a way that's very similar to what Jesus does. And this is the powerful metaphor to prayer. That because his eyes are raised to heaven and not fixated on the crowd, he can absorb it, what's being done to him, and not give it in kind. Not give it back in kind, like Jesus. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Stephen makes a similar prayer. Don't hold them accountable, Lord, essentially. And, he's able to resist that kind of impulse to give it back the way I got it. You hit me, so I'm going to hit you harder in whatever way that we do that in life. Turnaround is fair play, sometimes we say. But Stephen is able to absorb it, transform it into praise, because he's connected to something deeper, something else other than the movement of the crowd. And that's such good wisdom, simple as it is for us in a world where we're constantly bombarded by the crowd, public emotion and public thought and social media and and we could just as easily say crowd, kind of mindless much of the time. Our social and our public life and discourse is so important, but we can only engage in that public discourse with freedom if we're deeply, deeply rooted in something else. And so the life of prayer is certainly praise. It's the way in which we take all the stuff that's happening to us and give it back to God as praise. But it's also the thing that grounds us and allows us to move through life and not just be mowed over by the crowd, whether those are people, ideologies, agendas, you name it. There was an author, I'll leave you with a thought, who had commented on political life or group life, if you want, social discourse and opinion. And he said, look, don't go right, don't go left. He said, go deeper. And that's what we see St. Stephen doing. We see him taking pain, turning it to praise. We see him rooting his life in something deeper than all of the pressures and voices around him. And we see him praying, and that's certainly the central call for us.